This is everything you need to know to understand the Britney Spears conservatorship up to now. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to Legal Bytes. I'm Alyte, I'm a lawyer, and on this channel we explain the law one bite at a time. So in order to give a good foundation here, we first have to go over what a conservatorship actually is. So the terminology for a conservatorship can vary from state to state, but generally speaking, what we're talking about here is the situation where an adult is unable to take care of himself or herself or non-binary self, and the court steps in and appoints some sort of an agent to help that person take care of their everyday life or their financial life and helps them to basically ensure that their needs are met and basically ensures that they're not taken advantage of by the outside world. Now, as I just mentioned, different terms can be used depending on the state that you're in. For example, in Washington, D.C., a conservatorship just refers to the management of someone's finances, and a guardianship refers to the management of their day-to-day care and medical needs. On the other hand, in California, if we're talking about a guardianship, usually we're talking about minors, meaning people under 18. And a conservatorship is reserved for people over 18. But that distinction between the medical side and the financial side is divided into what's called the conservatorship of the person, that's the medical side or the day-to-day care, and the conservatorship of the estate, which is the management of someone's finances. So because Britney Spears' conservatorship is in California, those are the terms that are used: conservatorship of the estate and conservatorship of the person. And as we go through the video, keep those two terms in mind because there are actually right now different people that are appointed as the conservator of the estate and the conservator of the person. But at the end of the day, a conservatorship is intended to benefit the conservatee, meaning the person that's being conserved. And the idea is that a conservatorship is supposed to be the sort of situation where someone is protected from abuse because there's a lot of court oversight in a conservatorship. Usually conservators have to file annual accountings and they have to show up for regular court appearances, basically so that the court can monitor how the conservatee is being handled. Now, depending on the situation, a conservatorship could just be temporary or it could last for a very long time. For example, where someone gets into a car accident and they end up in a coma and they don't have a power of attorney or advance medical directive, they could be placed under a temporary conservatorship. And if they end up coming out of that coma and totally making a recovery, the court can determine that a conservatorship is no longer necessary and they can terminate it. But then on the other hand, you can also have a situation where someone has dementia. Let's say this is usually in a case for grandma or grandpa or your great aunt or great uncle. In a case where someone has a chronic disability that is likely to get worse over time, like dementia, usually that's a situation where the conservatorship ends up lasting a long time or maybe even for the rest of that person's life. And that's usually just because of the nature of the disability, that it's one of those sort of progressive disabilities that is only going to make matters worse for that person. Okay, so that's conservatorships in general. So now we have to go over how Britney Spears ended up in a conservatorship in the first place. Well, in her case, there is certain information that is very publicly available, and there's information that is not publicly available. So the information that's publicly available is stuff that you can find in the documentary Framing Britney Spears, and all kinds of news articles and TMZ articles and blog posts and Instagram posts. There's a lot of public information out there about Britney Spears. Most notably is her very public breakdown back in 2008 when she was going through a very, very public divorce from her then husband, Kevin Federline, and really going through a custody dispute for her two sons. It clearly was a very stressful time for her because she very famously shaved her head and then attacked paparazzi, and following that she was hospitalized at least once or twice. It was just a really turbulent time for her then. But on top of all of that information that the public widely knows, there's also information that is not publicly available that is arguably very important to know if someone is going to determine whether she should or shouldn't be in a conservatorship. In a recent statement that she made to the court, she referred to having been put on lithium.
He immediately the next day put me on lithium out of nowhere. He took me off my normal meds I'd been on for 5 years. And lithium is a very, very strong and completely different medication compared to what I was used to. You can go mentally impaired if you take too much, if you stay on it longer than 5 months. But he put me on that and I felt drunk. I really couldn't even take up for myself.
Now, there's always a possibility that she may have been improperly put on lithium. However, if the prescription of lithium was proper for her, then that would indicate that she may have bipolar disorder, since that's usually what lithium is used to treat. Now, on its own, a diagnosis of bipolar disorder is probably not enough to put someone under a conservatorship. There are all kinds of people out there today that have bipolar disorder that manage it in various ways. However, there are some people that struggle with it to the extent that they probably should be conserved, because otherwise they'll end up homeless or worse. Aside from that, her father also has alluded in the past to the possibility that she might have early onset dementia. If that's the case, it's possible. It's incredibly rare, but it's possible. Okay, but regardless of all of the information that we don't have, what we do know is she was placed under a conservatorship in 2008. Under the conservatorship, Britney's father, Jamie Spears, was named as a co-conservator along with his attorney, Andrew Alyte. Now, when you have a co-conservator, you basically have the responsibilities of a conservator split up in two. Both have the ability to make decisions for the person, but they, generally speaking, have to work together. The reason behind having this split between a family member and a professional probably was so that things were kept on track, and with a little bit of maybe transparency or oversight, or at the very least, the appearance of it. Now, apparently Britney Spears didn't have much of a relationship with Jamie Spears before this point. And now, starting in 2008, he took complete control over her life, both financially and in her day-to-day life decisions. On the one hand, this could be a father who belatedly decided to step up and support his daughter, or on the other hand, if we're to look at it in a more jaded sort of way, this could just be a father who saw an opportunity to take advantage of his daughter and control her life and control, more importantly, her finances. I don't know, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. And although Britney Spears apparently really wanted to have her own attorney that she chose, the court determined that she was not capable of making that decision, and so they appointed one for her. That attorney was Samuel D. Ingham III. Now, some important changes have been made to the conservatorship over the last few years. Number one, the attorney co-conservator, Andrew Alyte, resigned as co-conservator, leaving Jamie Spears to be the sole conservator of her estate. Basically, that means that Jamie Spears has been running Britney's finances since then. Second, there was a change to the conservatorship of Britney's person. Jamie resigned as the conservator of Britney's person, and instead a professional fiduciary called Jody Montgomery stepped in. Jody Montgomery is a professional fiduciary who basically specializes in conservatorships. She's been appointed as a temporary conservator in this case, but Britney apparently has been trying to push for her to become a permanent conservator of her person. And as late as this last year, the court also approved a new co-conservator of Britney's estate. That co-conservator is another professional fiduciary, the Bessemer Trust Company. They were just recently approved, but because of the recent approval, they haven't yet taken any steps towards acting as a co-conservator for Britney's estate. But everything seems to have changed since the June 24th hearing. Ahead of that hearing, Britney Spears made it known that she wanted to address the court directly. And boy, was that address explosive. Leaked audio from that hearing shows that Britney Spears appeared by phone and made some really damning accusations, not just against her attorney and her father, but basically everyone in her family and anyone that has been remotely connected to this conservatorship. As for her attorney, she said that she had no idea that she could even request to get out of the conservatorship.
Ma'am, I didn't know I could petition the conservatorship to end it. I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I honestly didn't know that.
Which is true. A person that has capacity can request to terminate it if they feel like they no longer need it. If what she said is true, then that could be a really bad thing for her attorney in terms of his professional responsibility requirements. Another crazy accusation that she made, and when I say crazy, I'm not saying she's crazy for making it, but if it's true, it's nuts, is the fact that she said that she wants to have children, but she's not allowed to do that because she apparently has an IUD and she has not been allowed to make an appointment to have the IUD removed so that she can have children again.
I was told right now in the conservatorship, I'm not able to get married or have a baby. I have a ID inside of myself right now so I don't get pregnant. I wanted to take the ID out so I could start trying to have another baby, but this so-called team won't let me go to the doctor. to take it out because they don't want me to have any more children.
Now, her whole address was somewhere around 25 minutes, so there was a lot of accusation that was leveled at a lot of the people around her. Those are just a couple examples. And on the one hand, if we assume that everything that she said is true, those are all crazy accusations and point to probably a relatively high likelihood of abuse of her through the conservatorship. But on the other hand, given what we don't know about her medical file, if she's having some sort of episode and she's leveling these accusations that actually are not true, then that could indicate that she really still should be under a conservatorship. To me personally, while listening to her address, she did sound relatively clear-headed. Now, that doesn't mean that she's not lying. However, that could indicate that she at least is aware of what she's saying and aware of the consequences of what she's saying. But what do you think? Do you think that her accusations that she leveled were probably true or probably not true? Let us know in the comments below. Anyway, so here's what happened after the hearing. First off, the person who's been Britney's manager for pretty much her entire career decided to withdraw as her manager. In a statement that he sent to Britney's attorney and to her father, he basically said that he understands that Britney has effectively retired, and she's made that very well known that she intends to retire, and so his services are no longer needed. Now, second, that co-conservator of her estate, the Bessemer Trust Company, they decided to withdraw as a co-conservator. There are all kinds of reasons why that may have happened, but most likely, given the fact that they hadn't actually started acting as a co-conservator, they're probably doing that as a way to sort of stay away from controversy and stay away from potential litigation. Personally, as someone who has been a litigator in this area of law, I think that probably makes a lot of business sense. Third, Jody Montgomery filed a petition to the court requesting that the Britney Spears estate be able to pay for extra costs that just spiked as a result of the hearing for security. Basically, Jody Montgomery and her associates were getting all kinds of threats to their bodies and to their lives as a result of what came out during that hearing. Jamie Spears fought against that, saying that that's just the cost of doing business with Britney Spears, but all of that was to be resolved on July 14th. Now, before we get into the July 14th hearing, there is one more detail that is very, very important, and that is the request by Samuel D. Ingham III to the court to withdraw from the case. Now, after Ingham's request to withdraw, Britney requested to have her own chosen attorney represent her, and the person she chose was Matthew Rosengart. He's a shareholder at Greenberg Traurig, which is a big firm. He's a former federal prosecutor, and now he does a mix of white-collar crime litigation and entertainment litigation. Given the fact that he comes from a big law firm and the fact that he does have apparently quite a bit of experience representing celebrities in a range of legal issues, this probably is someone who would represent her fairly well. But all of those changes needed to be approved by the court on July 14th. Okay, so then the July 14th hearing happened. At that hearing, the court determined that Samuel D. Ingham was allowed to withdraw. The court also approved Matthew Rosengart as Britney's new attorney. This arguably is a huge, huge win. Remember that in conservatorships, a huge issue is the capacity of the conservatee. When I say capacity, I'm talking about the mental capacity. This means the ability for them to understand what's going on around them and understand the consequences of the decisions that they're making. So when it comes to Britney's wishes and the things that she wants done, certain things require a certain level of legal capacity. Capacity is usually required for things like getting married, entering into a contract, executing a will, executing a power of attorney, those kinds of things. So in this case, the fact that the court allowed Britney to choose her own attorney is kind of a really big deal and could be an indication of the fact that this conservatorship may actually end sooner rather than later. Now, as for the Bessemer Trust Company, the court also approved their withdrawal. For them personally, as I mentioned before, that may be a good thing. However, now that means that in terms of the management of Britney Spears' money, now all of that is being done by Jamie Spears, who is the sole conservator. Britney has said multiple times through her attorney that she doesn't want her father to be anywhere near the conservatorship, so the fact that he's now the only person in charge of her finances is probably not something that she really wants to see. However, she did have that huge win in having her own attorney appointed. And as for Jodi Montgomery's fees, it looks like the court did not make a determination on that one because it was disputed by Jamie Spears. However, Britney's new attorney said that she didn't object to the use of funds for Jodi Montgomery's security services as she requested. And apparently since that hearing, there's been a stipulation that's been going around between the parties in trying to reach an agreement on that issue. So in this case, it looks like the attorneys for the different parties in this case have been doing what's called meeting and conferring, which basically it means an informal process of essentially talking over the phone with one another as to what they agree to, what they don't agree to, and how they can work out a certain negotiation so that they can basically resolve the whole issue. At the end of all of those informal discussions, you have a document or a form that's signed by all of the different parties or their attorneys and is filed with the court so that the court can decide, okay, this is no longer an issue that I have to look at, and they can move on. So now that's basically where we're at, assuming that no changes have been made since the time of filming and editing and publishing this video. A lot of things have been happening over the last couple of weeks, so it's entirely possible that there could be more details that are left out that are brand new. If that's the case, I don't mind doing an update to this video because I find it super interesting and I know a lot of other people do too. But what do you think? Based on the information that is available out there, do you think that the conservatorship should end? Or are you a little bit more hesitant based on the lack of certain information? Let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you found this interesting or at least informative. And if you did, we'd love it if you'd hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods.
About that.
And if you're new here and you want to see more content just like this, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you can find out when the next video is uploaded. See you in the next one.